Oh, one of the things we're always looking for is patterns, right? So let's take a look at those three examples, your example, and I'm going to give you, for speed's sake, I'm going to give you a quick summary of the three keys to create any breakthrough. Let's say there's an area of your life that's not working. You're not getting through to your kid. Your body's not where you want it to be, energetically, strength, visually, whatever. You're not where you want to be in your career or your business. Your finances not. Any area you want to create a breakthrough in, I want to give you just the first three steps that'll get you there. And I'm going to give them to you, though, in the opposite order of importance. And the reason I'm going to do that is because this is how most people attack it. And by showing you the opposite, I think you'll understand what people do. And if you reverse it, you'll get results so much faster. So there's three keys to a breakthrough. They all start with S. And the first one that most people start on, if there's something they want to change, something they don't like, they first work on a strategy. What they want to know is they want to know, how do I do this? How do I lose this weight? How do I make this money? How do I turn around my relationship? How do I, shift myself emotionally? And that's a reasonable question. But when you start with strategy, you've made a huge mistake. Because what happens is, I call it really the tyranny of how. Write down the tyranny of how. You don't want to get into the tyranny of how. Now, don't get me wrong. I am a strategist. I've spent my entire life finding people that are the best in the world at something. In fact, I have a new book. Maybe someone will hand it to me. I'll show you guys. I hope some of you will just pick it up. I'm donating 100% of the value of this book, all the profits of this book, just like all my other books, to Feeding America, to feed people. But I have a third financial book. It's my last one in the trilogy. It's called The Holy Grail of Investing. And I went out and interviewed 13 of the most successful investors in the world in something called private equity, because the returns they get are better than anywhere else in the world. So I'm always looking for strategies. One of these people all make 20% plus per year. One guy makes 36% for 26 straight years. I mean, it's mind-boggling. If you're making 5% on your money, you're doubling your money every 14 years. If you're making 9% every 8 years. When you're doing, 14%, 20%, now you're doubling your money every 3 years. So I believe in strategies. I'm filled with strategies. But when you start with a strategy, you've made a mistake, because if you've never done something before and you start with how, it's overwhelming because you don't have an experience. You're like, I don't know how. I've never done this before. And even if someone shows it to you, often it won't work. Let me give you an example. Most of America, the U.S., is overweight. We have more overweight people per person here, population, than just about anywhere in the world. And most of the rest of the world is catching up with us because they've caught up with our terrible lifestyle. And so over 70% of America is overweight. The fastest growing group, by the way, of overweight people is people overweight by 100 pounds or more. That's the fastest growing group. It's crazy. Now, why are we so overweight? Is it because the strategies for being fit and healthy are so complex that only the wisest and smartest people can figure it out? Of course not. Is it because the information is limited to the 1%? You have to be rich to get access to those strategies. No, it's not so. I mean, if you wanted right now, if you were committed to losing weight, how far would you have to go from where you are right now in your home or office to find someone who could help you lose weight, get fit, get strong? Most of you, it's within 10 or 15 minutes. In fact, many of you could hire someone to show up at your house, or you don't have any money, you could download a series of books or articles or examples or free courses or apps. There are so many ways to lose weight. It's unbelievable. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have the wrong strategy, it's going to be terrible. For example, about 15 years ago, the cover of Time magazine was the Atkins diet. And if you remember the Atkins diet, in America, supposedly 14% of Americans were on this one diet. And it was very effective initially because you're eating this real high level of protein and you have this acid in your body. And you ought to know that if you have to pee on a stick because you're so acidic and your breath smells that bad, this might not be the best approach to doing this in a sustainable way. And of course, you reduce your calories, you put a lot of acid, you peed a lot, you lost a lot of weight. It didn't last. It didn't work. It's a terrible strategy. So starting with strategies are critical. It could save you 10 years in your business to have the right strategy. That's what I've done. How am I running all these companies? All strategies, patterns. But you can't start there because it gets overwhelming and you don't even believe it. Because I'll say to someone, okay, let me show you the strategy so you can get fit and healthy. Let me show you the strategy to go from broke to financially secure to financially free. And someone who's never done it before won't even see it. They go, oh, I've already tried that. Really? How many times? How many different ways? How many different approaches? But what they'll say usually is, I've tried everything. Or they'll say, I can't find a relationship, all the good ones are gone. Or they're gay and I'm not, or I'm gay and they're not, or whatever. So the real challenge for breaking through usually is that we have the second element, a story that gets in the way. Because our story is nothing but a set of beliefs we tell ourselves over and over again. And there's an old phrase that says, if you tell a lie big enough, loud enough, and long enough, sooner or later, people believe you. Who said that was Hitler. And Hitler, by the way, most of us are Hitler to ourselves. When I was watching your videos last night and reading some of the things you wrote, some of you are in a really tough place. Some of you are in a great place. You just want to do better. Some are in a tough place. If you're really in a tough place, I can promise you, as I read, I could hear the story of what had happened to you, what has gone on. Trust me, I've spent my life dealing with people in the worst situations in life. And there's some people they've lost their sight, they've lost their arms, they've lost their family, and they have the most joyous, happy, amazing, extraordinary life. It is not life that controls you. What controls us is the life you focus on. In fact, jot this down if you would. Write down, I'm not experiencing life. I am not experiencing life. I'm experiencing the life I focus on. Because whatever you focus on is real to you. It becomes your story. In other words, how many of you right now, if you wanted to, could think of many things you could be upset about or frustrated with in your own life or with your kids or in the world? Raise your hand, make some noise if you can think of plenty of things to be upset about. How many of you, if you really focused on, have lots of things you could be incredibly grateful for? People you love, those that love you, your health. How many got tons of things you could be grateful for? So what's wrong is always available. So is what's right. But when your story is, I've tried everything, then you don't even try anymore. You can have the answer right in front of you and not see it. I'll give you an example of storytelling. I remember when I was a kid, I don't know if you ever had experience like this. We were really poor and I worked hard and I had to go to the store, get the groceries on my bike, bring it, make the meal, put it down. I finally sit down to eat and my mom or dad would say, get me the salt. And I'm starving. I'm just starting to eat. So I go, I don't know where the salt is. I was not lying. I didn't know the exact GPS location of the salt. And they say, you know the salt is. Kid, get the salt. I was like, I don't know what it is. Get the salt. I don't know. Go get the salt. So I get up, and what am I saying? I don't know what the salt is. I don't know what the salt is. And open the cover, and I go, it's on the second shelf. I don't know where the salt is. I look. I go, it's not here. They said it's on the second shelf. I'm going, I don't know what the salt is. I really am looking. It's not there. My dad walks right beside me, reaches right in front of my face and goes, what is this? Who's had an experience like this? Make some noise if you know what I'm talking about. I told myself a story over and over again. I don't know what the salt is. And so my eyes saw the salt, but my brain didn't perceive it. It created in psychology what's called a scotoma, a blind spot, where literally you can't see the answer. How many of you have ever been with someone and they want your help and you're trying to help them, show them how to do something, and they don't even see it? It's like, no, that's not possible. Who's dealt with people like this before, right? Because they have a story that's stopping them, a limiting belief. So you heard the earlier lady describing about her book. She shifted her belief. She shifted her story. So write this down. Change your story, change your life. And we're going to play with that a little bit today, towards the end here. Change your story, change your life. If your story is, man, I'm always at the bottom of the pile and I try everything and nothing ever works and I've been through this and that, it may be true, but that's the wrong story. A better story is, I've gone through all these experiences that have made me stronger and now I'm ready. I'm ready for the next step. Here's what I'm going to do. And as simplistic as that sounds, you'll never use the right strategy if you have a limiting story. Your story says nothing works, so when I show you the strategy, oh, I've tried that, or, nothing like that works. That works for rich people. The story is the glue that gets you stuck. Raise your hand if you follow that. Make some noise so I know you got it. And by the way, what you want to do is divorce the story of your limits, of your limitations, and marry the truth of your real abilities. Now, some people get a divorce and then they go visit with their divorced one over and over. Don't want to visit with your old beliefs. You just want to cut it off and move forward. Now, if you got the right story, you'll figure out the right strategy. Even if I don't show it to you, you'll find the right strategy with the right story. But your story is affected by what you should be starting with, and most people get to last, if ever. And that is your state, your mental, emotional state. Now, what does that mean? Well, have you ever gotten really angry with somebody, and then suddenly when you're angry with them, you think of everything they've ever done that's ever pissed you off? Who knows what I'm talking about here? Let's hear you if you know what I'm talking about. Or a better example is, have you ever been with somebody, have you ever gotten to a place where you felt like head over heels in love with someone? Whoever's felt head over heels in love, out of your mind in love with someone, make some noise. Well, by the looks of some of you, it's been a while. Okay. But how many at least been in lust? At least in lust. You were so excited. Okay. All right, we got the rest of you now with that one. But when you're really in love with somebody, write down in the chat box, when you're totally in love with somebody, what will you do for them? Write in the chat box. When you're totally in love with somebody, what will you do for them? That's right. Anything, everything, whatever they need. That's right. So in the beginning of a relationship, we're in a different state. We have a different story. Our state and story is like, what do you want? Someone says, could you take out the trash? When you're totally in love, you go, take out the trash, happily do it, I'll do it for you. How else can I help you? Right? But after about 7 days or 7 weeks or 7 months or 7 years or 70 years, somewhere in there between 7 days and 70 years, the person says, could you take out the trash? And you go, what do I look like? You're a janitor? You know, I don't know what it is. We don't have any passion anymore. I don't know what it is. Because you went into a different state. When you're in a great state, things flow. Now, you can change your state, the way your mind and emotion is working. That's where you want to start. You want to change this order. You got to get yourself in state. If you've ever been at home and you're like this, you're like, oh man, I know, I got to figure this out. I gotta turn my life around. I'm like, oh man. In this state, you will never get the answer. But if I can get you in a radically different state, like you see we do in the seminars, and we're going full tilt for 12 hours a day, and most people wouldn't sit for a 3-hour movie someone spent $300 million on, and now we got 20,000 people in a stadium or 40,000 people around the earth digitally, and we're all going for it, and everybody's giving their all. In that energized state, now we can create a new belief or a new story. Now when I show you what to do, you'll do it because your body is wired for it. You have that testosterone drive, and the cortisol's gone. Now, I've been teaching how to change your state for decades. The fastest way to change your state is a radical change in the way you use your body. And you can change the way by changing your voice. Once again, right now in your chair, just for the hell of it, create a sense of total excitement. Make the sounds of excitement. Move your body like you're totally excited. Go on.